So you've arrived into I call it a class. I call it a class. Is it a class? Is it a talk? Is it a class? I'm not entirely sure. It feels like what I'd love it to be is you and me and a couple of other human beings with stars in their eyes sitting in the dark somewhere with candles lit and maybe like a harp playing really quietly in the background and some like a waterfall just kind of on the edge of hearing. That's what I'd love it to be. And so if you could just drop into that, if you wouldn't mind just imagining that, and we'll meet each other in that place, and we'll meet each other from there. There was a time when I would speak just to myself. I was one of those kids that would speak to myself. I my father wasn't around. We Papa Bear wasn't in the house from about 6 years old. So I'd talk to myself. I learned to talk to myself. I learned to have conversations with myself. I learned to ask for guidance from myself. I mean, that's what I thought I was doing. I'm like, okay, this is me talking to me. I don't know. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Who knows? But I'd have conversations, and it felt like I was having them with myself. And I remember there came times when I'm like, I want to share this with people, and then I'd look around and there'd be no one there. And I'm like, I'm just going to say it anyway, like little 10-year-old me speaking to like just, the oval at school or just empty spaces. And then time came where I found myself in rooms and they were like almost empty rooms, two or three people in the room. And I'd speak and they wouldn't look at me. They didn't know how to like really look at me and they wouldn't take me in. And then a time came where there were more people in those rooms, but I don't know if we knew how to truly communicate with each other. I don't know if I don't know if I actually knew what I wanted to say then. I don't know if what I was saying was really worth their ears. And now when I speak, it seems to be increasingly that people listen. I just want to name that that's my experience. And not always, but part of the reason that we're here is that. And the main thing I want to name within that is that it's important to me I want you to know that I have reverence for your ears. And I want you to know that my deepest intention here, and whenever any place where I get to speak words, is that the words I speak are worth more than the silence they fill. The words I speak are worth more than the silence I feel. And I invite you into an inquiry around that for yourself as well. The words I speak are worth more than the silence they fill. That's the dream. I don't know if I always do it well, but that's the intention. That's what I hold in my heart as I come here with you. Yeah. There's lots of words being spoken on earth in these times. Lots of them are being spoken, and not all of them are worth more than the silence that they fill. Yeah. Yeah. It's my devotion to learn how to do that. And it's an honor and a privilege to speak words and be received. I just want you to kind of like, do you guys know that one, right? To speak words and for people to truly receive you, not just listen, because to listen to someone is something that's really special. For people to listen to you, that's really special. But for people to listen to you and hear you, that's something really special. My definition of that is that hearing is when we take in what is said into our being, when what is said kind of penetrates our auric field, when it comes into our biology, when we let it, we let something come into us and be with us, to be with it for a moment. We let it touch us. We let it touch us. And for me, it is, such an honor to sometimes get to touch you somewhere in like your aching, the deep depths of your aching heart. And so there's two ways that I recommend engaging this class slash talk slash candles in the darkness. The first is listen underneath the words. Listen to what I'm not able to say. Listen underneath the words to what I'm not able to say. Because there's a lot that I have inside me right now that I'm not masterful or practiced enough or journeyed enough to name to you. But it's there underneath the words for the willing listener and the one that can really bring themselves to hear the intention underneath the words. So listen underneath the words. See if you can hear what I can't say. And two is to know that everything I say you can consider myth or experiential myth. It's not necessarily fundamental truth, it's myth. And what that means is that the myth, I got angry about this earlier today. I was having a moment. It happens sometimes. I'm like, myth has been bastardized because I grew up in a world where myth was the opposite of truth. Where there is a thing that is true or it's a myth. It's a falsity, it's a lie. And that's not what myth is, actually. Myth is something, it is an experience that is here to tickle the truths that are already inside you. So everything that comes out of my mouth, it's not fundamental truth. Don't take it as that. But see if you can let it tickle the truth that's already inside you. See if you can kind of let it, put some water on the seeds that are sleeping, that are already there. And so the myth is more like the water rather than the seeds, just pouring over the seeds, letting the seeds come alive. All right, let's begin. Some of you who've been with me for years or months or whatever it is, you're probably sick of me doing these intros. There's some good whispers in there, though, isn't there? Okay, welcome, my kin. Such a pleasure to be here with you. My name's Matthew Liam Gardner. I'm the eldest son of Timothy Gardner and Janet Benner. I came into this world beside the Mary River, known by the Australian Aboriginals as the Marabakula, and near to a mountain called Kaju Kadu, and Mount Mararai of the Great Dividing Range. My father line is European, Polish, Russian, Mongolian, Dutch, and Germanic, and my mother line is Scottish, Irish, Welsh, and English. I am a descendant of the Micklejohn clan. It's my grandmother's side, and she's fierce, I tell ya. The Beaumarks, the Swarovskis, and the Gardners. In my brothers' and stepmothers' communities and villages in the island provinces of Papua New Guinea, I'm called Kanamon, and that's the name that was given to me on my 21st birthday by my step-grandfather, who was part chief, part elder, part holy man, and is now passed. I grew up walking Juggara, Turrbal, Nunnuckle, Jundaberry, and Ninginigi lands all over southeast Queensland, and I went to school in Meanjin, which is now called Brisbane. It's a real honour to be here with you today, and my prayer is that our time together is simply of service to you and meaningful for you. Let's begin. When. So it feels like many years ago, although it's not actually that long, really, in the grand scheme of things. But with how many adventures we're all having at the moment and in life, a couple of years can feel like lifetimes, really, can't they? And I sat in a ceremony, one of my first really important ceremonies, with a woman, and some of us call her the singing raven. The singing raven. I sat with her for the first time. And after the ceremony, which was magical and powerful and beautiful, at the end of the ceremony, in our time together, she put down in front of her a collection of items that came from the land where she'd been initiated, the land of her teachers, There were mandalas, there were altarpieces, there were feathers. She was offering them to us to, purchase on our after the ceremony. And at the end of putting these items down in front of her, she kind of paused for a moment, and then she reached into her pocket and she pulled out 3 bottles. And she put those bottles in front of her as well. And she said, yeah, she said, "This is CBD oil." And she put it there. And, CBD oil was illegal in the country where we were sitting ceremony together. It wasn't legal. And when she put it down, she kind of took a moment to look us each in the eye. Not exactly that, but something like that. And she really took the room in, and she was really with us. And she said, "It is a great pleasure to offer you this medicine that is not yet allowed in this country." And she was offering us a thing that was by law not legal. She was kind of putting that in front of her. And I invite you to kind of put whatever your perspectives on CBD oil, aside for a moment, and just be with this thing that I'm saying here. She put something illegal in front of us because it was in integrity with her being. And then she held that her truth with grace as she looked into our eyes and offered it humbly and yet powerfully to us. And she was willing in that moment to stand in the truth of who she was. And she did it so masterfully that it really stood out to me. And I think that may have been the very first time that I ever realized in the moment that I was encountering someone living sacred purpose. It was the first time I'm like, whoa, that's different. How she holds that inside her and how she puts that forward in this climate, in these times, that's something very special. When I sat in front of Shivam O'Brien for the very first time, Irish mystic, grumpy uncle, elder, beautiful, beautiful man, dear friend, poet. When I sat in front of him for the first time, there was something about the way that he was that wasn't performative. There was something about the character he was playing in the great story that we're all a part of that wasn't putting on an act, and yet it was so extraordinary, so and clear a character. Long hair, unbuttoned, kind of like Viking shirt, candles, harp. And when I saw him, I thought to myself, we're all meant to be an expression of ourselves that is that much ourselves. We're not all meant to look and sound and be like Shivam, but we're all meant to be ourselves to that extent. There was something in Shivam in that moment, my first time sitting with him in a Celtic roundhouse. Some of you know it. Celtic roundhouse, candles, harps. There's something about that moment with him that echoed something that lives inside me back to me. There was something about seeing him owning something that was sleeping inside me that woke it up within me. There was something that he had rested in that I had not rested in myself. How you guys? You guys hearing me here? Give me a little nods. I can see your faces, so give me nods or winks or little cheeky smiles. I'm journeying with you. I'm a projector as well. I'm kind of bouncing off you energetically. So your presence and your love fuels me and really has me kind of bouncing with you. Okay, onwards. Going to kind of. I mean, this call might not end up making sense, but there's lots of important pieces within it. Sometimes the best things don't make sense. I'm not really sure if trees make sense, but they're pretty cool, you know. Um, they just kind of are. It is. All right. So what is this? I mean, what does this mean? Like, what? Why am I talking about these two beings, the singing raven and Siobhan O'Brien? Just for a moment. By no means were either of them um, are either of them like the exact examples of what I'm talking about here. But both of them woke something up within me. And I'm sure that in your journey in life, you've come across people that you've seen or sat with, looked into the eyes of, who've woken something up within you as well. That they have embodied to you something or some version of something that lives inside you. And so what I'm kind of here advocating for one of what I think's one of the colors of the rainbow. There's lots of colors of the rainbow. Here today, I'm going to talk about one of them as if I know it really well because I've spent my entire life sitting in it. Let's just call it purple. I'm not sure if it is, but let's just call it purple. I've spent my life sitting in purple, and I'm here to advocate for purple. And today, purple is going to represent embodied beingness. Embodied beingness. How do we find our way there? Hmm. Hmm. The word embodied is kind of a part of this embodied beingness. It could just be beingness. How do we find our way to beingness? Could just be that. I like to say embodied because it calls us out of our head into our soma, into our body, into our flesh. How do we inhabit our flesh? How do we be fully within ourselves as we move through the world, as we live a human life? For me, in the color purple today, and for most of my life, the journey of that, that's what I want to advocate for our gazes to be in that direction and to spend a lifetime looking in that direction, actually, and journeying in that direction. Hmm. Embodied beingness is a way of being, just naturally being, that is not just a knowingness, not just a knowingness, not an understanding, but being the thing. Just like Shivam, he didn't understand mysticism. He was that. He didn't understand poetry. He was a poet. He didn't understand what it is to be a bard. He was a bard. He is a bard. He didn't, he didn't know how to. He didn't know that we need to, you know, learn true intimacy with each other and find our way to new styles of living in this world. He landed a 200-acre valley in Wales 30 years ago and put his body on that land for 33 years. He beat the thing. Just know it or understand it. He beat it. How's everyone doing? Color purple, hey? It's wild. uh, all right. Hmm. So what is sacred purpose? Well, you know how earlier I said you have to hear the thing underneath the words? I say that because there's some things in the world that you can't, actually, all the best things you can't really name. You can't you can't really capture with words um, what the fundamental truths are. But you can kind of whisper and point, and we have to experience them really. But I'm going to give it a crack anyway, just because that seems to be what white men have been doing since the beginning of time, giving it a crack. And I'm going to keep on giving it a crack. What is sacred purpose? It is the purpose that was seeded into you as you came into this world. I'm not really here to get esoteric about that or to, oh, Yuri, you're here. Hey, Yuri. Oh, I didn't know. Hey, hi. Oh, I didn't see you. Hey, welcome. The purpose seeded into you as you came into this world. I don't want to get esoteric about it. I don't need to. The myth of those words are a lifetime of remembering. What was seeded into me as I came into this world? The human mind goes to how, it wants the structures, it wants the, it wants all the pieces of like, okay, how the hell did something seed into me? But the myth of we came into this world with a purpose seated inside us needs to be enough. We need to find within ourselves a faith in that. To knowing that, not that we necessarily came here for a reason. I'm not saying that, but that our being is already ready. It's already full of all the juice and the goodness that we're here to let pour into the world to come forward. That we're already here with the instructions or the inner knowing, the wisdom for how we move as beings. And just maybe like you, maybe like me, sorry, maybe like me, you have had very few people in your life model yourself back to you. Maybe you haven't seen all that many examples of beings touching embodiment or truth or beauty so deeply that parts of you wake up as well. So what's sacred purpose? The purpose seeded into you as you came into this world. And one of the pieces that the Aquarian bear, that's just the myth I'll play for a moment. Sometimes I'm a butterfly, other times I'm a fairy, and today I'll be a bear, a bit of a bear. It's true. All of it. What the Aquarian bear wants to speak in these moments is I want to put on the table the myth of sacred role. Sacred role. That you came into this world seated with a purpose. And that purpose is timeless. It's a timeless purpose. And your sacred purpose, as it flowers, is going to meet the world, this life, in this moment. Because sacred purpose is both timely and timeless. It's both timely and timeless. There is the timeless parts of your being, the timeless ways to engage the moment. And there is a timeliness, a way of engaging this moment on earth, the challenges of this moment, the reality of your family in this particular, moment in its story and unfolding, and the challenges and the beauty, engaging the world in this moment, but doing so in a way where the timeless meets the timely. And if you do just one of those, if you just do the timeless, then you miss this moment. You miss this, you miss being all of yourself in this moment of the story. And if you do just the timely, then you move through the world lacking the depth and the color and the flavor and the ripeness of all that you are. So we must find a way to be all that we are. The timeless parts of ourselves must have a space in this world in a way that meets the world in this moment that is timely. And that is quite a journey. That is quite a journey. Who here is hearing me in some ways? Yeah, getting a little whispers. Another thing I was going to say is that I know that, I know that everything I'm saying you already know. Just to be clear, I know that my main role here is to speak to the things that are already inside you and speak them aloud so that outside of you, you're like, oh, are we doing that one now? Okay, okay, cool. Oh, everyone else knows that too? All right, maybe we can start dancing to that tune. And so I just want to acknowledge that I know this is in you somewhere, even if it's sleeping, and even if it's in its own a different form to how I'm saying it. I know it's in you, and I really want to acknowledge that I don't own this wisdom. This is ours. This comes out of the collective consciousness. This comes out of the earth. These are our knowings. These are our rememberings, not mine. Onwards. Oh, you also may have noticed I made a whole plan for the class that I kind of advertised and put out for free. And then like 2 hours ago, I'm like, oh, I really want to do this stuff instead. So it's kind of, it's inspired. It's inspired by what was put out, and it will speak to that in some ways. But yeah, it may not hit all the points that was spoken to. Sometimes that's just where the mystery takes us. Sacred purpose. It was I remember when I knew I had a purpose. I remember when I thought I knew what purpose was. I remember when I thought that I was on purpose. I remember when I thought, I'm like, yeah, I'm really doing it. This is purpose. I remember that really well. And I remember how that changed over time. It spiraled, just like our solar system. It spiraled. It changed. And I really, as I grew and I listened, I found my way closer to myself. I still do. I still am. I always will. Found my way closer to myself. So what purpose was for me changed. And I'm so glad I let it. I just want to name that piece for a moment. I let it. I let my solar system spiral through the universe. I didn't just stop it where it was, froze it in time, and said, this is what it is. I let it move closer to where it's always been going. So let it move closer to where it's always been going. What's the map? I don't know what the map is. I'll tell you what I think the map is. I I think I said a map on the title. I think it's more of a compass, to be honest. But I'm gonna try and like just make up a story about a map for a moment for you, and maybe this story will serve you in a beautiful way as well. So I think the map is the story. I think the story is the map. I think uh, the being really intimate with the truth of what was. the truth of not just where we've come from, but the story of Earth, the great story, the great unfolding that we're a part of. I'm saying the word story, but you could say tapestry. The great tapestry that we're each threads in. And sometimes we get caught in our own thread. Sometimes we get caught in our own character, our own moment within the story. But to know the story is to know the map, to know where we've been, and have that, and to not just know that, but to have that in our bodies. For me, to have in my body the story and the knowing that 11 million medicine women, witches, and grandmothers were burnt in Europe just 500 years ago. And because of mathematics and lineage, my family was part of that on both sides, the burning and the being burnt. To know that in my body, not to run from it, but to be with it, because that is a part of what is and what was. That's a part of the map. That's a part of the instruction. And that's just one, I shouldn't say it's one little piece, but it's one piece of it. It's one moment, one, multiple decade moment in the great story. You might have heard the phrase, we're a people with amnesia. You might have heard that phrase before. And that's, it's okay to have amnesia up here, but we must remember ourselves in our body. We must remember the story in our body. We must let the full journey of the human experience wake up inside us and be known inside us. And we mustn't run from it. We must be with it. I love all, anytime I see a Neanderthal or anything like that, like, someone who's created an image of a Neanderthal, I love it. I love a cave person or something. I just love it, because I love sitting with the concept of not having like language in its current form, and like grunting when I, really kind of showing myself, showing myself, rather than kind of trying to meet everyone, in a nice, kind of smooth way, just kind of like really being myself, representing what I want, representing what I need, being grunty and, not hiding, not putting on an act, not putting a mask on to just kind of fit in and make things flow, but to wear my truth in the moment. Oh, I love Neanderthals for that. Not just Neanderthals, but the metaphor Neanderthals represent, old humanity, first humanity, maybe. I don't know the story. Neither do you. But this idea of all of time being held within us, and we run from the story. That's what I'm trying to say here. We run from the map. We run from the story. We think that because something happened 25,000 years ago, that it's not important to us. Well, it still lives ultra present in our genetics, in our DNA, here with us right now. Something happened a million years ago. It's here with us. It's a part of us. Inside the human body is something like this. It's crazy wild. I'm going to get this wrong, but this is kind of an idea. It's roughly an idea. It's something like 20 million 16 gigabyte iPads of information. That's 20 million 16 gigabyte iPads of information is stored in the human body. There is enough storage and memory, both biological and mystical, spiritual, within the human body, that the story of the beginning of this planet is in us. And I find that extraordinary. It's extraordinary. So the story to this moment is inside us, and we're a part of it. We get very caught up in ourselves a lot of the time, and think that it's all, we through our eyes and we, look into our moment and see our own feet. But we're a part of this, like, such an extraordinary story. And I don't know if we have reverence for it enough. I don't feel that we're intimate enough with it here in the West. But when we are intimate with it and we do feel it inside ourselves, it changes everything. When we feel in our body where we are from, it changes everything. Everything. When we feel it in our body. This is why my first teachers I didn't know they were my teachers, they were just grumpy grandmas at fires, Aboriginal grandma speaking words. I didn't know they were my teachers. I just thought I was at the fire with them, But turned out they knew a thing or two. When they spoke, they spoke of belonging, and they told me, your people have lost their belonging. You've lost your belonging. Where's your belonging? Oh, and my belonging was calling me to remember where I'm from, what I am of, what I am of. So this map has a past, a present, and a future. Where we're from, where we've been, what our biology is made of. Very simply and beautifully, if you just look at your face right now, if you can see your own face, I can see mine. You can see your own face. The structure of your nose, the structure of your brow, the color of your hair, the the shape of your lips, your chin. Like, this isn't just a recent story. That story, the story of your face, has been building and since the beginning of time. Your body is made of earth and water. What? We are matter of the earth, dancing around on top of her. That's how, not just how far back our story goes, all the way down into the earth, but like your mama, when she ate food, that food became you. That's where you started. And then every 7 years, you'd be, all your cells would have kind of regenerated, and the food you ate then would have become your matter. The face that looks back at you from this screen, that face is a recipe that has been becoming since the beginning of this planet. And we have to learn how to hold all of that inside us. Because if we can't, we are fractured from our roots and we are fractured from our story. We don't even need to know the story like this at a mind level, but we have to feel it. We have to be able to be with it and not run from it. And then if we can do that, we can find our way. All of that. More and more over a lifetime. Every season, a little more. Every season, a little more. If we can do that, then we have a hope, a chance of actually being able to rest into our body in this moment. There is no being in our bodies right now if we're running from our past, running from the story, if we're fractured from the story that has been around since the beginning. You guys hearing me? That's the first part of the map, where we're like the story to now. Not even the story up here, but the story in the body. Like the knowing of the body of the earth. This, and relating to yourself in that way. Of the earth, water, a little stardust. We're like the particles that are here in some, well, the particles, but the chemistry since the beginning of all things. The beginning of all things. Here. I think that's extraordinary. I think that's a revelation that's here to bring us alive. It's here to have us feel the true beauty of our human existence and the terror, all of it, the pain, all of it. There's so much in here, and we have to find a way to be with it all, to be with the witches that got burnt, to be with all the beauty and the magic of the human journey that's been so far, and to let that be inside us. There is no path to sacred purpose that does not have us being in ourselves in the truth of where we are from, in the truth, in the living truth, I mean, the experience of where we are from and what we are made of and what we are and what the story has been to this moment. If we're fractured from that, disconnected from that, we're disconnected from our story, the great story, the big story, the one you can feel in your belly. So we have to feel where we're from. Just bring my shit up in front of me. And then we have to meet the truth of where we are right now. The truth of where we are right now. The truth of that. I have to own and rest, not just own with words and spoken to you because, I can speak the words, but I need to be intimate with myself. I need to know truly and that I'm master and toddler all at once. That I am powerful and weak all at once. That I have all the Earth, 4 billion years worth of memory in my body, and I struggle to remember it a lot of the time. I need to be able to meet the truth of this moment. If I can't meet the truth of this moment, if I can't be my truth, the truth of my body, the truth of how out of my body I am, the truth of how scared I am, or the truth of how disconnected I am, or the truth of where I'm really coming from when I'm intimate with my partner, the truth of this moment. If I can't be true to myself with that, then I can't truly inhabit my body. And if I can't inhabit my body, I can't inhabit my purpose. So there's a radical self-honesty that we're called to. Radical. I don't know if I like the word radical, but something like that. Honesty. But honesty in a way that so few have modeled to us or shown us. An honesty in a way that even like me, 20 years into this dance, some of you I'm sure have got decades on me, like 20 years in, I still have to be real. I have to be honest about myself, with myself, about my capacity to be honest with myself. That's really humbling. It's really humbling. So if we can be with what's been before, and we can find our way to true honesty in this life, then all of a sudden we can start to play a game that is innate to the human experience. All of a sudden we can begin to engage our lives, in a way that few in this era of the human story have found their way to. And I like to think of that as sacred role. Sacred role. And I use the word sacred while everything I'm saying here, hold it firmly but softly. Firmly but softly. And what that means is, take it as having lots of meaning in it, and take it as being ever changing as well. Sacred role. What a thing to find our way in this life to the expression of the purpose that was seeded into us as we were born. What a thing to find our way to that. What a thing to find our way to full form. Full form. And I like to use the word full form because it kind of puts it's like a verb. It's not a verb, but it is a verb. It's a calling. It's an invitation to a place that we haven't arrived at yet. That's what I like about it. I like all the things that call us to keep spiraling. I really like those. To find our way to sacred role. And now, how do I know sacred role exists? Well, because I've seen people who are embodying sacred role, and I'm like, that's sacred role. There it is. That's it. You're doing the thing. Have you ever seen someone there's something really clear about how they're moving in the world, how they're living in the world, that just it's like they're in a different world, but they're really living that world. They're fully immersed in it. They've given themselves to that. Have you ever met someone of that nature? Yeah, I've met a few. That's for all of us. And I'm not talking about abandoning this moment. It has to be timely as well. It has to find its way into this moment. And so I want to teach you before we go into the what lies ahead. I want to share with you. I've shared this with some of you before, but I would love you to hear this even deeper this time. There is the earth and there is the world. There is the earth and there is the world. The earth, she's great. She's good. Indigenous cultures live on the earth, with the earth, as the earth. The world is what we dreamed on top of the earth. It's what we dream on top of the earth. If this is all myth, just go with me. What we dream on top of the earth. They're different things. There's been many different worlds in the great story of this planet. Many different worlds. Some of them have been in something like harmony with Earth. Others haven't been in harmony with Earth. That's what not being sustainable is. To have a world that isn't in harmony with Earth is what is like the mystic definition of unsustainable. And so I'd love to invite you. I like the Earth world metaphor because it's kind of like a real grounded version of like talking about the Matrix. This is like, the Matrix is the world. The Matrix is the world, the thing that we've dreamed. Now the world can actually be in harmony with the earth. It can be a beautiful thing. Civilization can really dance with the earth in a beautiful way. It can be nourishing. It can be life-giving. Or it cannot. And so the reason I talk about the earth and the world here with sacred purpose at the core is because your sacred purpose exists on the earth. And I want you to sit with that one for a moment. Your sacred purpose exists on the earth. And because I'm here representing purple, fully and wholly, because I'm here representing embodied beingness, fully and wholly, I'm going to today stand for the fact that no, there isn't a bridge. That doesn't exist. I've never seen one. It feels important to name that. So sacred purpose is of the earth, with the earth, of the earth. That's what we are as human beings. So sacred purpose has within it the truth of being fundamentally human. Fundamentally human. Of the earth, with the earth. That's us. And so it has to be, our sacred purpose fits into the shape of the earth, works with the earth. Now, what do you do with that? It's like, that's very kind of broad sweeping, a very broad sweeping statement. What do you do with that? How do you find your way through that and to that? The myth is the dream of the earth, says the great storytellers. The earth dreams in myth. That's what the great storytellers say. The earth dreams in myth. And so the myth the myth is the example of a world that works with the earth. The myth is an example of the world that works with the earth. And so the myth is an example of the myth is how you find your way to your place on this earth, to your role on this earth. Your myth, your story, your role, your place. So there's a lot of stuff here that feels like it's quite simple. We were seeded with a purpose. We have, we're always in some kind of role in our lives, whether we're mother or we are fire tender or we are sage or we are, these are all different myths. Even mother is myth for a moment in time, Sometimes mother becomes grandmother. They're all myths of a moment. But they point us, they call us deeper into ourselves. And there's an art to letting them. There's a great art to letting them. Okay, so that's all the stuff I wanted to share at the beginning. That's almost like the mystical outline. And now I want to go in. We're not going to have a break, by the way. So if you need to go to the toilet or anything, just duck off and come back. Now I'm going to go into, now that's kind of like the context. Everything I've shared is the context. It's not all meant to line up or make heaps of sense per se. It's just like, it's kind of the field we're playing in. And they're all the flowers that are in the field. Now, this is what I really want to say to you today. We lost the initiations in the Western world and nearly all cultures, actually. That's the truth of it. We lost the initiations just over the last 4,000 years in different ways and at different speeds and at different times, ever deeper, until we arrive here and there was no initiations for me. There currently is no initiations for my child, who wasn't here yet, but will come. We lost the initiations. The pilgrimages fell from our presence. We lost they fell out of our hearts. Our embodied devotion was lost. We let ourselves be so caught up in the day, in the moment, that the pilgrimages fell away. The elders hid. The world, in this world of burning medicine people and, burning the embodied magic, the elders' voices went quiet, save a few. And so the elders became far and few and far in between. And the embodied elders were like, like red whales, takes a lot to find a pink whale out there. When the initiations were lost, the initiations were each culture's way. Like it just kind of naturally emerged through the human experience. They were each culture's way of supporting a being, a child, on their journey of becoming a fully grown human. And then for a fully grown human to come into their fullness, which might mean leadership or sacred purpose or sacred role. And for those in sacred role and sacred purpose and leadership to come into their elderhood. And for those in elderhood to pass into the next. We lost our initiations. The initiations were the cultural, like each of our cultures' way of supporting us to incarnate onto this earth. And so in many ways, we're a lost people, even in the best of places, even in the most empowered of places. There's a fracturing. There's roots missing. There's embodied presence missing. Even in the best places. And the workshops and the classes, this is just a little revelation I had I want to share with you. The workshops and the classes and the master classes and the immersions and the retreats and all of this, everything that I do in my life and some of you do as well, all of it is there because we lost the fundamental journeys of a human life, and we are trying to remember piece by piece and pull back piece by piece each of what it is to become a human. That's what the workshops are about. They're, an immersive workshop, a transformational workshop. It's only there because the initiation isn't. It's only there because we lost the thing that it replaced. In fact, workshops, immersions, retreats, even a class of this nature, something like this, it's the greatest success of what I'm doing in my life is that I don't have to do what I'm doing here because we've found our way back. The workshops are supposed to end the workshops. The classes are supposed to end the classes. Maybe not the class, not like the teaching classes. The retreats are meant to end the retreats. They are the best we can do in this moment on our journey back to the initiations and the pilgrimages and the true embodied humanity experiences that genuinely allow us to become fully grown humans, to arrive here on earth, to incarnate into our bodies to some degree. And I'm not saying that all cultures even did this well. I'm not holding the past on a pedestal and being like, it's amazing. I'm just saying they got that right. They got it right. That's a part of what lies ahead for us over the next 300 years. That's what's coming. That's what's arriving. You cannot find your way to your fully embodied sacred purpose unless you find your way to the initiations and the pilgrimages and the elders that are part of your remembering. I'll say that in like a really simple way. You will not find your way to fully embodied sacred purpose until you find your way to the initiations. Because what they ask of you is to become what you have always been. And there is an unmaking in that. There is a letting go in that. There is a death in that. So when I talk about the secret paths, what I'm winking at is the initiations that just like, and the pilgrimages, that just like the elders that I was talking about before, they are here, but they are rare. And my generation, which some of you can relate to, and some of you can partially relate to, my generation has been trying to self-initiate. And self-initiation is a thing that can only go so far. The next best thing is peer initiation. That's when we hold the journey for each other. And that is beautiful. And now we're starting to talk. But peer initiation can only go so far. At some point, you need fully grown humans to hold the field of journey. You guys hearing me here? Now, what I just said, a lot of you already know. And by the way, again, I'm talking about each. Like some of you are already some of you are transitioning into elderhood now. That's your next transition, and there are initiations for elderhood as well. You know, there's like this is all myth, but it's real as well. There's initiations for elderhood that it takes a devotion and a willingness to go to, because you're probably not going to want to do big parts of it, to be honest. You know, to like what to be the Aboriginal grandmother with her breasts out at the fire, fully rested in her body, looking everyone in the eye, and being a medicine of embodied remembering just in her being. For many of the West, that takes something. But you can feel the fundamental human truth in it, right? And so these initiations I speak of are what it's like the transition from this moment to that. Mm. Initiations is often a young man word, but I invite you to take it in all its forms, because I'm talking about it in all its forms, in its form of, it's not always about the cave. Sometimes it's about the mountain. Sometimes it's about the devotional ritual. Sometimes it's about the cuddle puddle that goes for days at the sacred site. Sometimes it's the rites of passage. Yeah, sometimes there's when I'm saying what I'm using initiation to mean here is all of the rites of passage and ceremonial ritual, true cultural human experiences that support us to arrive genuinely into the next chapter of it all. And we must find our way to them. I mean, that's a pretty simple statement that you probably already know. The part that I am here to represent in this moment is willingness. Willingness. Willingness to walk steps, for your feet to move towards a thing that you're not even sure about, that you're not even comfortable about. Walk to take steps towards your next death. You know, well, it's already an initiation when the feet start moving towards it. You know, sometimes it takes Sometimes it takes. We just got people landing. I'm just going to invite them in. Sorry. Where'd they go? Don't know where they go. It's all right. Yeah, yeah. For the feet to start moving in that direction, it takes a willingness. It takes a devotion. That's the nature of our times. It's the extraordinary nature of our times. It's sometimes it takes the credit card. You know, it's taken. That's what it's done for me sometimes. In this moment of all the chapters, you know, where the village isn't kind of where the hand isn't on the shoulder and pulling you into the circle when the moment arrives in your life, or where the village isn't there, the community isn't there, and in a matured, ripe state to then custodian you into it. Sometimes every time for me so far, I've had to find my way to it myself. That's the nature of this moment. That's the nature of, before I was talking about the timely before. It's not just the timeless, it's the timely. Well, in this moment, no one's probably going to put their hand on your shoulder and pull you towards an initiation. No one's going to pull you towards a rite of passage. No one's going to pull you towards a pilgrimage. Probably. You're probably going to have to find the will yourself. And why is no one going to pull you towards one? Well, probably because we're in a stage of our human journey where we don't have the intimacy with our villages and our communities and each other to an extent where the trust is there for that hand to pull us in that direction and us to go, the time has come, rather than, hold up, mate. Hold up a second. I'm going to step over here. The trust it takes for those moments is extraordinary. Willingness to find our way to the invisible initiations. And who here has found their way to something like one of, or something like an invisible initiation or pilgrimage? Just raise your hand if you have. Yeah. Thank you. What a thing to continue being undone, hey? What a thing after those to keep on journeying forward. What a thing. What a thing to find the will again. It's such an ironic thing that I was talking about the singing raven earlier, and that how she put an illegal thing forward, and it was an integrity actually with her being, and it's such an ironic thing because you could not ensure any of the initiations of any of like the indigenous tribes. There's no ensuring of that. It doesn't fit into like Western law or anything like that. It's such an interesting. This is the reality of this moment that we're in. So what do we do with that? What do we do with that? Well, we move anyway. And so in this moment, I wanted to name for you. I just wanted to name for you. These are some of my listenings, and they're open to evolving over a lifetime. But just to kind of remind you, it's not just about child to adult. That's just one of the starts. Birth is the first initiation. We live in a culture that even when it does talk about rites of passage, it talks about something that young people do when they're 18, or what women do when they have their first bleed, or that's just one of the chapters. We are on a lifelong journey here, and each of those layers brings us closer to ourselves. All right. Find the will within yourself to find the next one, my friends. They do exist and they are there. Deep listening will find you to it, find your way to it. It's not just about one type. If you've found your way to the world of plant medicine without finding your way to the world of myth, then you're missing a piece of, there's one of the core initiations of our humanity is not here. If you've found your way to the temples without finding your way to the caves, then you haven't found your way to all the places. These are things that exist, like the caves exist. The cave initiations are here. They're just hard to find. The temple initiations, they're here. They're just hard to find. The pilgrimages, I mean, Darren, you went on one just last year. They're here. It's just the community hasn't learned how to hold it yet. And we're still learning how to walk a pilgrimage. We're still learning how to move on it. So find the will again to find the secret places. I'm not here to point you to the secret places. I'm just here to remind you that they exist, that the adventure's not done. There's whole other layers still here with us that are here for us. Here for us. Here for us becoming ourselves. And once again, we have to find the will to continue forward, because probably you're not immersed in a field of elders and fully grown adults who are going to call you to that place when it's the time. I'd like to think that by the time I'm something like an elder, that my community and some other communities at least will be putting hands on shoulders and calling people to those moments. But I don't think that most of the places I see are there yet. All right. What else do I want to say? This is just a one-way class, by the way. It's just me speaking words. We won't have any backwards and forwards today. Maybe it's question time at the very end. So I'm kind of calling you to find your way to the initiations, to the pilgrimages. And a pilgrimage is a form of initiation, really. It's here with us. It's whispering to us. They're here. They're here. If you look some deep, like right now, okay, here's a good piece. If you find, if you're, you might be I thought I was a deep listener. I thought I listened pretty deeply, 4 years ago. I thought I'm like, yeah, this is deep listening. And as life goes on, and maybe you can find, and as my devotion builds, my listening gets deeper. And so, as I look across the field of us humans, I see particular deep listeners finding their way to places that I couldn't even imagine. And so I keep my eye on my brothers and sisters. I keep my eye on my kin, because the ones, particularly the ones that are listening, particularly the adventurous spirits, particularly the ones with twinkles in their eye and a devotional flavor to them. I'm watching and I'm listening, and I'm letting, just like the elders, I'm letting myself be awakened by how they move in the world. And I should also be that for you. I should also be that for you, just as connected humans and kin. Keep an eye on how I move. Keep an eye on how different beings who are moving with devotion, keep an eye on where they're finding themselves. These are all the strategies of a little boy who didn't have a father. They worked. They worked pretty well, really. Uh, all right. And I mean, the irony is, by the way, there's no because it's not black and white. We keep finding our way deeper. We keep finding our way deeper, where our embodied beingness is informing each other. So stay present to the field. There's a thing happening. We're spiraling deeper together, inspired by each other. And so your devotion might lead you to a place that I can't even imagine right now. But let it lead you there. And then tell me about it. Because I know that there's a piece for me there too. And this is where I wanted to share that in December last year, this is an example of what we're speaking of now. And in December last year, I'd spent a couple of. I went back to Australia after spending 2.5 years in the UK. Went back to Australia. It was my grandma's 90th birthday. Celebrated her birthday. And then I was in Australia, and the birthday was gone, and I'm in Australia. Okay, why am I here? And the first thing that I heard in the silence. Remember how earlier I said, we got to speak words that are worth more than the silence. Well, that's because the silence is super instructional. The silence lets us know everything. The silence points us where we need to be pointed. And in my silence, I got told to go and get intimate with my mother river. Okay. And I just instantly knew what that meant. It meant spending a week, a little more, a little less, a little more, with the river I was born beside, with the river that the hospital I was born in was beside. And it made sense that I heard that in the silence, because in these last couple of years, as I've listened to different Indigenous cultures and been sitting with different elders, and really had some real cultural teachers from different parts of the earth come and add their offerings to the table, one of the consistent whispers I'd heard was, find your way to your mountain and to your river. And don't just find your way there, but I'm paraphrasing because I deeply listen to them. Don't just find your way there, but find your way to knowing the spirit of that mountain and that river. And I heard it enough that when I landed in Australia and the silence told me to go to my mother river, I knew what it meant. It meant go to my mother river and know the spirit of my mother river. And I went and I spent 9 days walking and canoeing and swimming in my mother river in Gubbi Gubbi country in Eastern Australia. And I saw platypuses and I saw big barramundi, and I got stuck in rapids and almost died at one point, and my canoe popped, and I had fires under the stars on little sandy beaches in the Australian outback. And at the end, if I had gone all the way to the ocean, there were crocodiles, and I didn't go all the way there. I went from the source of the river to where I was born on this journey anyway. And I spent 9 days with the river. And I got to know her spirit. Actually, I can feel her. I can feel my river. I can feel that river right now. I know her. To some extent, like a friend that I, hung out with for 9 days really intimately, and I jumped inside a couple of times. I know her. I can feel her. And in knowing her and in journeying with her so intimately, just for 9 days, just me and her, a piece of my soul returned. It was a soul retrieval. A piece of me came back. A piece of me that had always been there, that I didn't know was there. Thanks, Yuri. I didn't know it was missing. I had to go to the place and give myself to the thing. I got told to go there by the silence. I went. It didn't make sense to go. It didn't make sense financially. It didn't make sense in the crazy hotness of that moment in Australia. It didn't make sense because there were other rivers that I thought were more beautiful and more adventurous and, you know, more like less farmland and more wild. But I had to go to my mother river, mine. And I walked beside her, and in some places there was rubbish. Earlier that year, there'd been a massive flood, and it was just like a tornado had gone through there. Not just rubbish, but just trees everywhere. It wasn't pretty very much. Not pretty in the way that we think nature's supposed to. I thought nature was supposed to be pretty, but it was true. That was the truth of the state of my mother river. That was where she was at. And I wasn't even there to like fix her or change her. I picked up a little bit of rubbish here and there. It wasn't about that. Could I love her as she was? Could I know her as she was? Could I bring myself to her as she was? Could I find my own pilgrimage and initiation in a river, surrounded by like farmland with a bit of rubbish that was the river of where I was born? Could I do that? Could I let myself not go to Tasmania or New Zealand and the rivers there that were different rivers? I'm being told to go to this one, but it's not, but it's mine, but it's not the prettiest. But I went, and there were platypuses, and I had a sore ankle for like 9 months, and I put it in the water for like 15 minutes or something. And I hadn't been able to like run for 9 months. And I pulled it out of the water and I could run. Something happened, like there was something that it was almost a miracle for me in that moment. Just me at night in the river. Something fundamentally true happened. It felt in that moment to me like that river held some piece of my original purpose, my original blueprint. And I thought about it. I'm like, this is the river that feeds the tanks, that feeds the system that my mother drank from when I was a baby, when I was in her belly. This is the river that she would drink from indirectly, but this water, this is where it came from. This is where I came from. It's one of my stories, one of the myths that make me me, the place I came into this world. So these soul retrievals are here to point us towards our sacred purpose. And now look at it. Look at me having walked that path. Here I am talking about her. Here I am. See how like doing that journey informs me and how I get to meet you now. And I get to sit with you, and there's like gentle tears in my eyes because it's real for me. And so my sacred purpose is empowered and directed by the thing I found my way to and through. And that's how we move in the mystery. How do we trust what we hear in the silence? How do we trust and give ourselves to that? After being burnt and lost and losing ourselves and, in the journey of a human life, rising and falling so many times, how do we again even bring ourselves to listen? All right, silence. I'm back. I'm here. What do you have for me? Where to now? And so, in a world where the elders don't know how just yet, not many, in a world where your peers probably can't fully hold the extent of this, you have to learn to trust yourself. Trust what you hear. Trust what comes through. And then give yourself to that again and again until you're the fully grown adult that we've been waiting for. Until you're the elder that is here with us and your hand goes on shoulders. Until the whole community is here and there is a field within which all of us can arrive. Mm. Mm. And that field is what I wanted to speak to for a moment. Mm. Because, yeah, thank you. You and I, we are interdependent beings. And for those who like to hear it, we're transitioning from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. That's just one way to say that we're maturing and ripening a bit, and we're coming to the next chapter of the collective journey, and we're moving out of the I into the we. There's lots of challenges that come with that. Holding your sovereign self, being all that you are amongst the we, all that you are amongst the us. Listening to each other when we trigger the hell out of each other. Being initiated by each other when we can't quite sync with each other's consciousness. That's what the initiations do. The different initiations arrive us into different consciousness. Have you ever known someone who's gone and done something really significant and meaningful for them and they've come back changed? Maybe even it's been you. maybe you've come back changed, and sometimes it's, there's a new consciousness that you're holding. You've been fundamentally altered by the journey, and life itself will never be the same. And the people how they've engaged you before, it won't ever quite click in that way until they also find their way to that initiation and the consciousness that lives on the other side. The field. Because we're interdependent, we can only inhabit our sacred purpose to the extent that the field will allow. That is a thing that you won't hear in personal development. The field is far more important than I was ever taught. The culture that we are in is far more important. Like the microculture of the community, friends, your close allies, but also the macroculture. I just want to call it the field for now. I will never be in my fullest expression, the fullest expression of my sacred purpose, until the field of beings around me can, their beings allow it, consent to it, are able to meet that consciousness. That's the same with you. You will never be the fullest expression of yourself until we are able to meet that, until we're able to hold that. And there's a mushroom metaphor I really love. I want to read it to you. I wrote it down. Um, where is it? Mushrooms. Mushrooms. There you are. Okay, this is a good one to write down as well, because I'm sure it's important. The mushroom can't fruit until the mycelium has colonized the substrate. The mushroom cannot fruit until the mycelium has colonized, until the mycelium is the culture, until it's in there amongst it all. There's, we can be seeds together, little shoots together, but we're not going to fruit until the culture and the field is here. And in many ways, and it's quite humbling to be honest, my entire life is devoted to creating a field around me where I can fruit. Kind of doing it though. It's kind of happening. And the beauty of it is that, because I've wanted to fruit my whole life. I was one of those who's like, I can feel the potential. I can feel what it is to be human. Why isn't that the experience? Why is it like this? I can feel it. I can fucking feel it. Ah! And yeah, the beauty of a life devoted to that is that it means that the others around me are fruiting, have a culture where they can, we're beginning to move towards fruiting us together. It's all of us are doing it. Eve, what a radical thing to, as a something like a grown man. I don't know if I'm that, but something like a man. I have a beard at least. I've got curly hair and a hairy chest. There's definitely a manly something here. Something like a fully grown man to say, all I want to do is fruit. I'm so ready. I'm so ready. Ready is ready the word? Or so desiring my ripeness, true ripeness, rare ripeness, a radical ripeness, the kind of ripeness that is a mixture of what once was, what currently is, and what has never been. That's the kind of ripeness that I can feel. Do you guys feel me? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so know that the field is important. You will only grow, rise, flower to the extent that the field allows. Whether we like it or not, that is a truth, a myth of our humanity. And that's part of this age as well. It's part of what we're working on now. It's part of this moment of being here together. As the field changes, the culture changes. As the culture changes, there's more energetic consent. There's more sacred permission for you to inhabit your sacred role, the role that is of the earth, the role that is innate to your being, the role that is beyond the world that has been, the world that is, the role that actually, through your being, dreams the world. We're beginning to get audacious here and have permission for each other to inhabit the thing that isn't really on earth right now. To move in the world in the form of in a role or the form of purpose fully expressed that actually has a new world, a new dream, a new beauty, a new dream of beauty come into our space, the space between us and the space between others and the space between more and that's a natural part of the great cycles of the earth, the great cycles of civilization. There's, seasons, I should call it, spirals, but because it's ever changing, times of If you look at the yugas, just as a wink, these great times. I'm almost talking in some ways about how we're experiencing and being ourselves in this moment, in the great cycles of the earth, the great cycles of humanity. There's risings and fallings, and there's golden ages, and there's just really fucking challenging times, and it's never one or the other exactly. You know, the golden ages had like 40% of lots of hard stuff happening. Yeah, it's the same like right now. I have friends who are like, we're in a golden age. I'm like, it's been a hard week. And it's quite an interesting thing to be in that. But yeah, so we have to, the field's important, and it's just important to know it. It's important to know it, because it's about you, yes, but the field is important to your arrival into your fullness as well. And a part of what I stand for is that field. And I will name to any field I'm a part of. I want us to be something that we haven't been for a long time. And I want us to hold a field together where we can truly arrive into ourselves. Not the ourselves that live in the world, but ourselves that live on the earth. All right. All right. I've been speaking for quite a long time now. We're going to move into questions in a moment. But I'll just give you some little sprinkles before we do that. I'm just going to say the words. Go know your river. Find your way to your river over a lifetime. Doesn't have to be right now. Your river, your mountain, even if it's covered in trash. Feel the pain of the custodianship. I'll call you forward, Yuri, when we get to questions in a moment. Feel the pain of even if it's pain because it's covered in trash, be with the isness of that. That's what a custodian does. That's what custodianship is. Being with the isness of it. There's a lot of rivers here in the UK that are just covered in trash. Like, it's so it's hot. There's also some beautiful ones as well, but there's some that are just covered in trash. It's not. It's different to Australia, the extent of it, but it's also an older Western culture here. A lot more, many more thousands of years of of people with, not making trash, living with the land. Find your way to the rivers. Find your way to your mountain. Know the spirit. Know the spirit of your land and the land of your ancestors, even if they're different. There's soul retrievals in both of them. Find your way to the elders. Find your way to the elders. The elders. I'm saying the word elders, and sometimes instead of elders, I say legends. And I'm going to speak to that. When I say legends, what I mean is living legends, characters that have found their way into their character, and they're actually moving in the world as that character. Find your way to those who are the fullness of their character. Their being will remind you of sleeping parts of you. Find your way to those who don't look like you and don't smell like you. Find your way to those who speak entirely different to you. The quiet, deeply feminine voices initiated me into my soul and my body in these last 5 years. The quiet voices. After all those years of Tony Robbins, who would have thought? Who would have thought that the quiet voices, the Magdalens, the whisperers, who would have thought the whispers had my next rememberings? So if you're loud, find your way to the whispers. If you whisper, find your way to the straight spines and the deep voices. Both those who look like you and sound like you and those who don't. Both. In the world around me, people often find their way to one of those. Or they'll kind of journey to someone or work with someone or something because they're like, there's a similar essence, you know? Both are important. The Magdalens taught me, I'm so grateful. Yeah. Never would have found my way there before. Find your way to the trees. The trees, in particular the elder trees. And again, there's a difference in knowing these things and actually moving in the world in this way. You can know, the trees are great, they're on my side. And then there's a pilgrimage to the trees to truly be with them and a learning of how to truly be with them. Find your way to the trees, in particularly the elder trees. They don't bother with the nonsense of the world. They're fully vibrating in the vibration of the earth. They hold a field of organic nature. And they, just like you, were once a seed, full of information, full of purpose, and full of potential. Almost there, almost at the end. I'm gonna invite you to a thing, just a little thing, and then I'm gonna share with you the compass, a little compass piece, and then we'll have questions. So it's not like a cell or anything like that. It's just a general invitation to you to come join me in person sometime or in a journey sometime, because there's something that's real that's here, and there's a love that is real that is here, and there's a family that is coming that I'm a part of. I'm not the center of or anything like that, but I'm a part of, and it's real. And there's fields that are landing all over the place now, slowly, bit by bit, one by one. I mean, ours is the best, but that, you know, the others might say that too. The main thing I'm saying is there is magic here, and it would be an honor for you to sit with me in candlelight in a roundhouse in a valley with waterfalls just down the road, and to see down the stream, and to meet you in a field where you can be all that you are. In fact, where we want that.